All right, we're switching it up. I'm opening up the show, and it's because Dom is in the hot seat, and we don't know whether I'm going to rip him apart or if I'm going to praise him. We're going to find out right after this.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we are number one source for fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Matthew Ane, here with my favorite co-host and one of my best friends, Dominic Martino. You can find me at Matthew_Ane, and you can find Dom over at Dom Martino FB over on X, Twitter, whatever we want to call it. When you get a chance, you're not going to want to miss our content. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube. I'll give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. And please leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you're listening, because it really helps out the show. And if you want just a little bit more than what we offer in this 30-minute podcast, check us out on Subtext. And you'll get a whole bunch more rankings, direct content with us and anything else leading up to that. So, and when the big game tips off, the NBA action begins and gets started, there's no better place to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So, Dom, you did a 5x5 standard head-to-league roto draft, 12 teams, and, pretty much that roster comprises of a single outfield, first base, second base, third, short, 3 outfielders, and UF, 2 RPs, and about 6 SP or 2 SP spots, and then 4 pitcher spots and 5 benches. Tell us your approach. Tell us what pick you came out of, your mindset, and, let's see if you did a good job or, we got to throw you in the fantasy trash can. We'll find out. Break it down.
Yeah. So, Matt, if you would throw the team up for the people on the YouTube there. But let's break this team down. I had the 4th pick, and I honestly got really lucky here. This won't happen most times, but I will preface what I would have done. Aaron Judge fell to the 4th pick. It went Ohtani, Skubal, Witt, and then I picked up Judge. But I'll say this, honestly, even if I didn't grab Judge there, I'm probably looking at a Juan Soto, a Kyle Tucker. Ellie De La Cruz may have been in play for me at that point. I will say this, Ellie's been super, hot this spring training. He's going to be in for a breakout year. But shortstop is a little bit deeper than outfield, so I would like grabbing an outfielder in the first round. I think that's the approach you want to take this year. After that, Bryce Harper falls to me with my 2nd pick. Elite player, just to get him in the 2nd round. He has MVP type upside. Love him in that Phillies lineup. Grab Austin Riley in the 3rd, and just the pairing of Judge, Harper, and Riley, I think sets a great core of power. Counting stats, batting average, not really leaving too much on the table coming out of the first 3 rounds besides speed, but you can make up for that a little bit later. Going into the 4th, I grabbed my first starting pitcher with Blake Snell. I have Blake Snell as a top 10 starting pitcher. Love getting him there. I come back in the 5th, and I do something I don't normally do just because I liked my core hitters. I grabbed George Kirby. George Kirby kind of fell, all the way into the 5th round. I have him ranked a bit higher than that, so I take George Kirby there to lock up some stability behind, the question marks behind Blake Snell. George Kirby can, rock us an SP1 until Blake Snell gets rocket and roll, and then you have 2 elite starting pitchers. I like that. Grab Marcelo Ozuna in the 6th round. Got to preface this. He is really only outfield eligible on Yahoo. If you don't play on Yahoo, you won't be able to play him on outfield. But still, what Ozuna brings to the table, you get another 30 home run, 100 RBI guy that could bat for high batting average. Sure, I'll take it all day. At this point, I'm not really banking on having a lot of steals. Almost punting the category, but you know what? Once again, you can make it up a little bit later on. I'll show you guys what I did. So I go into the 7th round. I grab Jordan Westburg to play 2nd. Matt and I love Westburg this year. He's going to be a big breakout player for those Orioles. They move the fences in. You're going to see a little bit more power from him, and he can steal some bases too. So I love getting Westburg there in the 7th. The 8th, I move into starting pitching again. Grab Luis Castillo. I have him ranked as an SP2 to get him as an SP3 is amazing. 9th round, grab Mike Trout. I don't know how I did this, guys, to be honest with you. I don't know how I was able to build this kind of team where you get, honestly, your 5th hitter is another guy that, hey, I can count on him for 30 home runs, Good, not the kind of stats that might not be great, but he's going to hit for a good batting average too, as long as he's healthy. And I could take that risk with a guy like Mike Trout with the core I've built to that point with my bats. Love it from him. In the 10th round, I grabbed Zach Gallen as my SP4. I have him ranked as a lower end SP2, high end SP3. To get him at that point is amazing. The 11th round, I jump into somebody we haven't talked about too much. I'll break him down a little bit more later, but I get Jeff Hoffman, who's going to be closing in Toronto. Had a great year last year, has closer experience. I got to check exactly where I have him ranked, but he is a closer one, at least in my rankings, I believe. I have Jeff Hoffman literally as my closer 12. So I get a little bit lower end on the closer, but I think the strength of my bats and my starting pitching kind of make up for it. Then I go back and Spencer Strider's there in the 12th. I know he's going to be hurt to start the season, but as my 5th starting pitcher, the 4 I have above him can hold down the 4 until Strider gets back. And then when Strider gets back, I don't think anybody touches this rotation in the 12-man league. Even if I have an injury or two, because then in the 13th, guess who I grab? Jack Flaherty. Crazy that he's going that late. If you can get him as your SP6, you're destroying your competition at that point. Then in the 14th, I jump back in, grab Nico Horner, get a little bit of speed, more batting average, runs. Kind of going to help out in areas I was lacking. Kind of try and help out again with that in the 15th, where I grab Josh Lowe. Going to give you some steals, counting stats, got a little bit of pop. I think he's somebody that we could be looking at for a big bounce back year. In the 16th, I jump in, grab my second closer, Jordan Romano. I think he's going to have the job over there in Philly, Matt, and I love him this year. 17th, I grab Tyler O'Neill. Got a lot of pop. Goes over to Baltimore as well. Going to drive in a lot of runs over there. Kind of just contributes to what my team does really well. So I'm kind of just going to overwhelm people with those counting stats and the power. I just wanted to add more to that. In the 18th, I grabbed Brandon Lowe. Just love him this year. Another guy that I think could bounce back pretty well. He could also steal some bags, has pop, going to be in a good spot in that Tampa lineup. I just keep adding hitters that are going to be in good spots and lineups that are going to give you counting stats, and that's kind of what you want to do with your bats as you're going later on. 19th, I grabbed Josh Young, another guy Matt and I are predicting a big year from. I think he's going to be really good for those Texas Rangers and for us in fantasy. 20th, I grabbed Jesus Lizardo. 21st, I grabbed Jason Foley, who should be closing for those Detroit Tigers this year. He could wind up with 30 saves. Then I move into the 22nd round. I grab my last starting pitcher with Nasty Nestor, who goes over to those Milwaukee Brewers. I like him this year. Goes over to a better ballpark to pitch in. Good team, known for their starting pitching development. Think they may have be able to help Nasty Nestor get back on track. 23rd, I grab my catcher in Austin Wells, and that wraps up my team. New York Yankee, to get him in the last round of a 12-man league. I think that's a great spot to end up in the catcher because I have him inside my top 10 catchers going into 2025. And that's the team, guys. I like it. I think I did a pretty good job. As Matt and I have been doing this, we're getting pretty good at, just being able to draft and build teams and help you guys figure out what players you need to be drafting and how to actually just develop a fantasy baseball team. I don't know if Matt agrees with me. We haven't really talked about it too much here, if he likes it as much as I do. Honestly, if I had to grade myself here before we take a little break, I don't want to be too, proud of this team, but I'm going to give it an A. I really like. I think this is a good way to build a team in a 5x5 head-to-head category league. 12-man team. This is kind of how you do it. But guys, we're going to have Matt's thoughts on the other side of this. We will be right back with you in a quick second after we take a short break. All right, folks, when the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action, and if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I personally love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking up a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. And all right, guys, let's keep doing it, man, because it's been working out. Keep rocking with Cleveland. I really think they're going to take it all this year. Their team's been on fire. They're doing everything right. They got that young core. Darius Garland, assist points. I like him on those threes even. Evan Mobley Mobley, the big man in the middle, Jared Allen too. Get them on those blocks and rebounds, take the overs on those. And that's what you're going to want to do. And then you head over to the app because it's super easy to use. And when you win, you're going to get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com at $150 bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And then, all right, folks, I need to talk to you guys about the Locked On Fantasy Baseball Podcast Diamond Club on the Subtext platform. Come on, guys, we're right there. We're heading to draft day, and you need that weapon, that competitive edge that's going to help you beat your league mates on draft day. And Matt and I have you covered on Subtext because we have our 2025 rankings that are tiered, sleepers, breakouts, bust, got them prospect ranks coming soon. And guys, you just really need to be over there because, we answering your keeper and dynasty questions. I know keepers and, lock soon and those types of settings. So join us on the Subtext platform. It's going to be where the path to your victories begin, and it gets you that competitive edge that you're going to need that takes your experience to a new level. Link is in bio wherever you're listening, watching, or it's available on any of our social media platforms. And all right, Matt, as we jump back in here, I really like this team. I think I did a pretty good job. I'm hoping you think I did the same, but we'll see. We'll see. To be determined here. Matt, do you have the haterade ready, or did I do all right on this one?
Let me bring it back up first. So, before I start, I think I'm just going to leave a little anticipation because it's fun.
Let it build.
So, no, I think you did a good job. I think this is the best mock draft, actually, between the two of us. And I think that last week, I felt I had a really good draft, and I think that this team would be hard to beat. And there's a few reasons. You look at your core bats of being able to have Judge, Ozuna, and Trout comes at an incredible value. You did a great job of building the infield, with Harper, Westburg, and Riley. Even though I don't like Snell as a one, you did a phenomenal job picking up two other, in my opinion, SP1s between Kirby and Castillo to allow you to have the dominance of Blake Snell and take that risk, like you said, with the slow start. It's very well balanced there at the top. Having Spencer Strider and Zach Gallen going in there later, and Strider being available if no setbacks come back, like we were talking about on our SP2 show. How I'm totally okay with him missing a month and having a potential to have the SP 3 or 4 in total by the end of the season. It's incredible. The rotation is stellar, and even with Jack Flaherty at the end, who I don't really like, but not that I don't like, but the price actually wasn't bad of where you got him. Again, there's a few holes I could probably poke in this that we're nitpicking, but here's the thing, right? This is the time to nitpick to make sure that you have the best possible outcome. So let's talk about it, right? So for starters, I feel like you could have maybe given up one of the strong pitching that you got and targeted a shortstop earlier. As much as I like Nico Horner, I'm not scared of the injury or anything of the sort. I think he's, I'm going to be fine, right? The Nico Horner, I feel like he's on a lower tier of talent, whereas you've done such a good job at prioritizing these arms that once you had that 1-2-3 punch, you could have figured it. You could have kind of targeted that position and did really well. I'm looking at different opportunities of when you could have had it, right? And even if you would have just skipped on Snell, for instance, right? Because you got Kirby in the next round, the shortstops that were going after that were like, let's see here. You could have gotten O'Neal Cruz over him. You could have had, I'm looking at another shortstop that went around that time. Even though we're not the biggest fan of CJ Abrams, CJ Abrams still is a step up from that, even though the price isn't great. Or you could have picked, Kirby earlier and then got Tovar in the next round. There is options, right? Where I think that you could have done better. You also could have done better in the steals department too. Your team as a whole is really good, but there's nobody that really is like an outlier in steals or a couple guys that I think can actually make you compete truly week in and week out without getting lucky and winning that category. Nico Horner could steal 50, 60 bags in a season, but when other teams can prioritize and get guys that not only chip in more than what you got going on, but also have one or two guys that are steal guys that are able to put up 30, you're going to be at a disadvantage against those teams, and that could be the difference maker. Now, what I do like is the way you compensated for the lack there of true competition in the category is you have a really good set of closers. I love the Hoffman. I love the Romano. You know, I watched a lot of Hoffman this year because I live in the area, and him playing for the Phillies in the 2024 season, he really did come into his own. He looked really good. And the fact that he has a closing job, I think he's going to be successful. Romano, I think, is going to be a stellar fit. I think that he's a top 10 RP for me. I love the kid. Well, not a kid. The guy's my age, so I can't really say that. But Romano is awesome. I think he's a very dominant RP. You know, I think he only had like 2 or 3 seasons above 3 ERA, and he's definitely over a K per inning pitcher. In addition, low whip, and definitely is a guy that you trust to go out there and get the save. So you did a very good job of, kind of, hey, if I'm not going to be competitive in stolen bases, I am going to be dominant in saves, and therefore you don't need to lock up all 10 categories. It's physically impossible. But if you can be dominant in one of the niche ones, and then one of the niche categories between saves and stolen bases, you're okay. And that is usually the goal. That is how I approach the draft. I know that's a strategy that Dom's implemented as well, and that it works really well in this kind of team build. So would I have liked to see a little bit more stolen bases? Absolutely, due to the fact that it could be the difference of another week's win. But to have the strength of being super dominant in runs, ribbies, power, especially because you have the Judges, the Ozunas, even Trout. Trout over 425 games 2 years ago had what was it, I think 30 home runs, if I'm not mistaken, Dom. I don't have the stat sheet.
No, you're spot on. You're spot on.
Right. And if he gets 400 at bats and you're able to get an output of a guy's whole season normally, that's ridiculous. And if he plays a full season, the power lives and there's even more upside. Yes, the Angels aren't the greatest team, but still he's managed to be successful and be an incredible player with pretty much nobody there, even before Ohtani and after Ohtani. So I'm not worried about the production of Trout at all. Just a matter of when he's going to get hurt. It's not like we're expecting him to run either, even after the ACL injury, because he hasn't ran in 2 years and he has back injuries. So they're going to try and keep him as close to the cuff as possible of not being able to run. So that's not even the world of possibility. Let's just hope he can stay healthy. Hopefully they take him out of center field and put him in a position where he
They
can
are. They actually did. They announced he's not playing center field anymore. He's going to right field this year.
That's beautiful. Give him a little bit more break and hopefully produce a little bit more health. And it's another boost. Honestly, because of that news, I'm going to move him up probably about 2 spots. I love Jordan Westburg. You touched on it. The Harper, I love it. He's a great first base target. You got him at the right at the price everybody's going to pay. If you want Harper, the team as a whole is better. I think Harper's going to have a better year than he did last year.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of can he, stay healthy? Can the Phillies do more? And I think they will. I'm not really worried about Harper's production. He's going to be just fine. Austin Riley, great slam dunk. I think there was 2 mock drafts since we started doing mock draft Monday in 2025 that he was not on the team. And it was probably on purpose because we had to say, we can't draft him. Well, he was allowed back in. And then Austin Wells, great last pick of getting your catcher. Well done. In terms of your UTs, now Josh Lowe, I love. I hate having him as like my starting UT. I don't think I'd pay the price because you drafted him ahead of the youngs and things like that. And that is where we like what I said, if you would have prioritized the shortstop and got for instance, O'Neal Cruz, and then just waited and got Kirby and Castillo as your 1-2 punch, you could have then gotten another good pitcher around that time. And you would have, your rotation still would have been just as good without Snell, but then also just had that ridiculous upside of O'Neal Cruz in your shortstop. And that would have been like one of the small little poking holes that I really would have done there. Now, and then you could have had, a better UT spot at that point too, because you could still prioritize some bats that I like going later that still can produce the same amount of output. Because Josh Lowe, yes, has high upside, but also has low floor if there is even a floor. It's kind of like, okay, I stepped into an abandoned building. Will this one piece of wood that I need to go from the front door to the kitchen, and, am I going to fall off or is it going to break first? I don't know. And there's that one shade of, okay, please don't let there be termites and I might not fall through. With Josh Lowe, but I like the upside. Now, you still have Josh Young. It's still not bad. You still have Brandon Lowe, the other Brandon Lowe, Lau actually, will not, that also has power, but can't stay healthy for the life of him either. Now, look, the biggest one, and he's your last pick one of your last picks of it, and I'm not going to nitpick, but I'm going to tell you what, you did make one other mistake. You have Nestor Cortes, and I'm going to get into why I don't like Nestor Cortes after the break, but I want to throw this out there, right? So when you picked, let me see here. I got to pull it up again. Where is he? So when you picked Jason Foley, who I love, and I think was a great, ditch effort to get your third closer, you passed on Jackson Jobe. And I would have rather had Jackson Jobe instead of Nestor Cortes, and I would have found another low grade closer. If not, I think Foley might have even came back to you on that next pick, and that would have been the pick, and that would have been your rotation goes from like where it already is to actually like redonkulous, and that would have been the other step forward. But this is why we do it with the exercise. So coming up next, I'm gonna talk about the reasons why I don't like Nestor Cortes. I'm gonna hand it back to Dom to give a rebuttal, and I'm also gonna give my ranking of the team coming up after this. Okay, we're back, and this is my thoughts on Nestor Cortes. You know, some believe that Nestor Cortes still has it. I'm a Yankee fan, and I've liked Nestor Cortes. I was touting him last year, but he was just disappointing. In 2023, when he got the injury, I thought that hey, um, you know, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt, et cetera, because he had that. I think it was that major Taurus whatever shoulder injury or something along the lines of that, and I could be getting them mixed up with Tristan McKenzie, but they both had arm injuries, and we chalked it up to it. But the thing is, though, even in 2024, which was a better year, finished with like a 3.77 ERA, and had 174 innings for 162 strikeouts with a 1.15 WHIP. Great stat line, but if you look under the hood, that is where I don't see how he can return to the 2022 form. And the differences are you look at his xERA. Yes, it was at a 3.62, but his x batting average is 2.36. Fastball velocity was never like a Matt Harvey level, but still it's decent speed. But then the average exit velocity is where it plays key. 89.7 miles an hour, near pretty much 90 miles an hour. And even though he moves to a better pitching park, you don't have the short-ish porch of the Yankee Stadium. It's not like Yankee Stadium is of a couple years ago. They did push it out a little bit since the good old days of the new stadium. So it's not like it was like a complete back in the day hitter friendly park. It just that average exit velocity is one of the things. He didn't get guys to chase as much, didn't create the whiffs as much. Didn't really strike guys out as much either. It was only 22% of the time. He allowed guys to barrel a lot. He gave up a lot of hard contact, literally 43.6% of the time. Didn't even combat that with ground balls because he was only able to get that 31.9% of the time. And those are things that I just you kind of got to highlight on a guy, even if he's going to a new team and they're able to develop him. It doesn't look good if you really start looking at it. His four-seam fastball was really successful, but the thing that sucks is his cutter was getting hit at a 258. And he leans on those two pitches pretty often. Like the fastball is 45% of the time, and the cutter that was getting hit at 258, nearly 260, 28, he throws 28% of the time. And the other pitches, which the other one is a sweeper, he throws about 15.9% of the time. And that had a batting average last year of 281. Meanwhile, the X batting average is 230, but still, it still got hit. It was still hittable. And then he barely mixes in his changeup, slider, and sinker. So the two biggest pitches he relies on, I feel, aren't that strong. And they're looking just like the same thing as last year. And it's okay. He was able to improve on a whole ERA coming off the injury. I'm not confident in his skills now because of the price. You take your shot on who you want to take your shot. I just feel there's guys that are just as volatile with higher ceilings and production that is available, such as the Jobs, the Rhett Louders, the guys that are going super late that are younger that have really high ceilings. And that is kind of where I would take my shot at my scratch off at the end of the draft. And quite honestly, I wouldn't be surprised, one, if Nestor's on the waivers after the first week of the season, or I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't draft him and he's on the waivers and he's undrafted. So you could still go and get him later and stream him out. And if he does perform, then you hang on and keep him. But I don't think he was worth the draft price. I'd rather take a better scratch off at the end of the day. Overall, this team is an A minus A. It's a really good team. I think you have a really great start off to the beginning of the season. You're going to go on a run, and barring no injuries and doing the right things on waiver wires, you should win the whole league. The team as a whole is fantastic. I can't argue, but I could just nitpick little things. So that's really it. This is the point of the exercise. So Dom, rebuttal.
I appreciate the love, brother. Thank you. I like I said, I think the people should know this is kind of the approach you want to take. This is kind of lot of guys that we really like are players I took in this draft. I want to nitpick myself too. I would love to have a backup shortstop for Horner. A little banged up going into the season. They're saying he should be ready for opening day, but I would like to have a backup there. Otherwise, like you said, maybe not Josh Lowe. That wasn't. See, at that point, I was thinking maybe I can grab some more steals. I was like, oh, Horner, Lowe, and then I really didn't jump back in, and that's kind of where maybe instead of taking Young or Lowe, I take like a Michael Garcia or somebody like that has shortstop eligibility that can give me more steals. Do something like that. But I really like how I played into where I was strong with the power, runs, RBIs, at batting average. I don't think anyone's going to touch me in any of those hitting categories. Like you said, with Hoffman, Romano, and Foley, I think Foley's getting a little bit slept on. Should close for those Tigers. Had a pretty solid year last year. He's going pretty late. And then, like I said, just wanted to shore up those saves. I want to agree to disagree on Nestor Cortes, though. I think he's being slept on going into 2025. You read off those numbers, and somebody you're getting as your last, he's my 8th starting pitcher. If you can get somebody at your 8th starting pitcher that threw 174 innings last year, 3.7 ERA, won 9 games, almost a K per 9, was a little bit under, but not far off, 162 strikeouts, 174 innings, and a 1.15 whip. I think he becomes one of those safety nets at the end of your draft where, hey, he's been good for a while. I don't think he's ever going to touch those, 2021, 2022 levels. But hey, if he could be a mid-3 ERA guy around a K per 9 with a solid whip on a good team where he could win 10, 12 games, I don't really see anything wrong with it. Like I said, if you want to take an upside play with the Louders or the Jobs, sure. I want to make sure Job is locked into the rotation before, I'm really drafting him, because then it becomes a guy where, hey, now that if he doesn't make the roster coming out of spring training, do I sit there and hold him? How long do I hold him for? Is it going to be one of those things just 2 weeks and then they call him up, that they want to retain more control? Kind of want to see how things go with him. I know he's going to get moved up when they kind of say, hey, he's made the roster, but you know what? We're going to have to pay that price for that kind of talent. I'd rather take the sure thing right now than play the upside game, even with the rotation like this. I know I had Strider there. I was like, okay, I can't afford necessarily having another guy that I might not have there right away, even though I really do like this rotation. And I don't really have too much else to add. Like I said, I'm kind of with you. A minus. If I have another shortstop, if there's a little bit more speed on this team, and that kind of would have made the perfect team if I would have had the steals. I think that's the only category I'm lacking in. So I'm not giving myself the A+. I think an A is a good spot. Now, any other thoughts on this team before we put a bow on this one?
No, I mean, you know what? This is a team that you pretty much you go in really happy. The approach is great, and it's great. It's nice to see going against our kind of grain of salt. Usually, me and Dom and I will try to grab 2 outfielders before we leave the 3rd round. Instead you went outfielder and then 2 positional players, and still was able to come up with, now granted too, like you said, Ozuna didn't play a single game, but yet Yahoo still has him as an OF, which is great if you play on that platform. Anywhere else it won't play. And then this strategy won't work because then, you're not having him as a UT. I wouldn't waste a pick that high on him. So that's why my rankings kind of reflect Yahoo, because that's, I think, the superior platform out of everybody. Not a sponsor, I might add. But, there's still other ways you can make this happen. Even if you didn't pick, what round did you take Ozuna?
6th, I think. I'm going to double check it, but I think it was the 6th round.
Yeah, it was. You were right. Other outfielders there is the Luis Roberts, there's the Lawrence Butlers. You swap in those, and
even if you throw in, I prefer Lawrence Butler there, man. Great name. Guy could have a big breakout year with the Athletics this year for sure.
Right, and even if you were to swap that out, you may lose a little bit of the excitement about this team, but you would have got more stolen bases too. So I mean, it still actually would have made your team, just in the same position, in my opinion, with the power upside of Butler, and it's a nicer swing, and then still have Mike Trout. So it would have been a great outfield, no matter how you sliced it and diced it at this point. So the draft just fell your way this time around, and that's the part of it, right? So guys, look, I'm going to leave you guys with this. We are now, what is this? March 2nd is when we're recording. This is March 3rd when you're listening. Start doing mock drafts 2-3 times a week at minimum, and then pick one friend, send them your mock, and say, hey, what would you do differently, or what did I do right? And just share it. That's how Dom and I not only had this podcast, but that's also how we got better. That's why it also took us 12 years before we even started a podcast. But this is what we did. And that's how you keep getting better. Me and him would just, okay, now I'm also going to go in the same mock draft room and draft against each other. It was fun. But that's all part of it. So look, keep going and do this exercise. And I promise you're going to be a better fantasy player and have a better finish than you've ever had if you do this from here on out, from today all the way to your draft. And you're going to be just fine. Dom, you got anything last to add?
Yeah, one quick thought, and then as you do that, if you do decide to do this process with your friend, don't get offended by you might feel at first, oh, you might feel attacked or some kind of way, or you think you just did a perfect job. Think about why your friend is telling you this. I'm sure they're coming from somewhere. Think about why their approach might have been successful. You got to be just very open-minded when it comes to having these kinds of conversations, and that's how you build. That's how you get better at this. But with that being said, guys, please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. Shout out to our everydayers and new listeners for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. And after you make us your first listen, go check out our boy Sully over at Locked On MLB. Make him your second listen. He's doing a great job as we're getting close to the season, breaking down this spring training in a little bit of a different way than we are. So go check him out. And guys, until next time.
Peace.